Good afternoon, everyone. This video is brought to you by foodforliberty.com/adapt2030. How prepared are you with long-term food storage for emergencies? Check the link below to see what else they offer. Taiwan bracing for a direct hit from Typhoon Nesat. It's actually changing course a little bit more northerly. Flooding occurring already in the northern Philippines. We get these cartoon graphics from AccuWeather, but the RGB, interesting look as two tropical systems fight for dominance. Typhoon about to land over Taiwan east coast in the Ilan area in the next 5 hours. As soon as it passes Taiwan, it's going to go over into Fujian province. From that point, flooding. Nobody's talking about the rice or the buckwheat. And this typhoon's not such the wind event, but what it is, an absolute rain soaker. That's going to have an effect on the farmlands of China from Fujian all the way up to Shanghai. And while you're watching, please remember to subscribe to Adapt 2030 and click the bell to get the latest updates and stay subscribed. Taiwan bracing for a direct hit by Typhoon Nesat. Already had an effect of flooding the Philippines. A graphic here for you moving over the island. It's actually going to be a little more north than predicted. The effect on the Philippines already being felt with massive rains as two tropical systems try to overpower each other. More cartoon graphics from AccuWeather showing you the areas in Fujian province of Xiamen that are going to be affected first, and this is going to roll up the east coast in through Zhejiang province and all the way up to Shanghai. Areas here of agriculture that are going to be affected in China. The rice crop is going to be completely flooded once again, and also any of the buckwheat growing is going to be hammered during this storm. A look at flood list already talking about crop damage through 7 different provinces on the east coast. This is just going to add to that damage. As we look at the storm cones, not only the one that's rolling through China over the next few days, but notice the strange pattern of the one that's been hanging off of Japan for the last week and a half. Can't really decide where it wants to go. But when we look at AccuWeather's infographic here, they talk about tropical moisture being swept over the west coast of Luzon Island. Capital of Philippines, Manila, flooded yesterday. These two systems are trying to over-dominate each other, but since the typhoon has actually formed with the strongest pulling winds, that other storm system that you saw down near Hainan Island was also a tropical system, could have had some development. On the map here, we'll see the 3 different systems in the Western Pacific. Now look at the RGB, shows you that unusual shape. It really, in my opinion, looks like some eagle rising from the ashes, especially if you're using the Philippines as the body, with the 2 wings as the tropical systems. Taking a look at the enhanced view, dark purples are where the heaviest rain concentrations are. Again, this is what the streets of Manila looked like yesterday with that tropical moisture pulling across the islands. Visible radar image here for you. Everything's linked below. If you want to follow the storm, I've linked everything so you can follow these same satellite feeds over here in Asia. The forecast cones are pretty much on the money. I like JMA's forecast a little bit better because they're using knots instead of meters per second. Looking at about 1.1 mile per hour per knot. This is not going to be such the intense storm with wind, but what it is going to be is an absolute rain soaker that's going to draw the rest of the moisture from that other tropical system opposing and pull it in through the same storm track. This is going to be a non-stop rain event with draw-along moisture for 4 days after the storm. So when we take a look at the rice crop in China, that should be in the dry part of its maturation process. When you plant the rice, they need flooded fields, they let it dry, and then the rice grows in the dry soil. This is going to reflood those same terraces, as well as hit some of the corn land that they had to replant due to flooding earlier in the season, and then nobody's talking about buckwheat. But as a major grain crop, used as a substitute because we lost an enormous amount of wheat across the planet this year, namely in America and Australia and parts of the EU. This secondary substitution crop is also going to rise in price on the futures market. A few hours prior, the eye is not really forming, which shows that it's going to be an absolute rain event. The stronger the eye, The higher the wind, it passes so quickly, but this is just a moisture drag along with it. Let's watch the progression here, moving along. It's about to hit the island in the next couple hours. Rain bands are already being felt along the east coast. Now there's a large mountain ridge through the center of Taiwan. Now generally these typhoons, once they hit that, they lose a lot of the power that they have, and then they kind of slowly drag over the island and land on China. This is exactly what's going to happen with this storm here. Again, the enhanced view where this moisture is going to go. Back to JMA, showing you the same thing with these two systems bunched up together. And if you're listening to this in Taiwan, the storm has shifted about 60 miles north. It's actually going to land somewhere just south of Su'ao, over in the Yilan side. And anybody in China, you better get braced for absolute massive flooding, above 800 millimeters coming down. After this thing makes landfall, turns into tropical storm and then tropical depression, is a little bit north of Shanghai, but all that excess moisture is just going to follow for days and days and days after. This is an unusual one for the rainmaking capability. Wind, that's normal, but the amount of moisture coming out of this one, whoa, look out for massive floods and crop losses. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. If you like these type of reports, please support me on Patreon, and remember to subscribe to Adapt 2030.